Okay, in this session, I'm going to be showing you how to do pushdown processing in Databricks and the impact of that. So firstly, I have sample 68 loaded here. You can again, obviously go to our samples and load it yourself. And I'm not going to load this now because I've already got it loaded. But once you've loaded it, you'll get this project structure here. Now, this is a sample project for Databricks, and what we've got set up here is a whole range of connections here, but I'm only going to be focusing on one or two just to show you the impact of the connections here. But as you can see, we've got Dynamics, we've got some REST APIs, we've got some FTP and SFTP and some database connections set up here. We've also got, this project is configured for Data Vault, but you don't have to use Data Vault. It's pretty much set up an example here of everything that is possible within BimlFlex. So let's have a look at the projects, and I'm only going to focus on one or two projects here. So the first one here is going to be called, this is just taking data from AdventureWorks, and it's going to land the data and stage the data, or basically take it into a raw layer and then putting it into your bronze layer. And I'm also got Data Vault enabled here, which would be the sort of silver layer. Again, some of the other videos already shows you how you can configure all of these things, so I'm not going to focus on that. So this one here I've got set up for pushdown processing. That's the default setting here. And I'm just going to go look at another project here, which is called CDC, which is to change data capture within, using change data capture in Databricks. And again, this is just a source. It's just going to go land the data again, put it into our bronze layer and putting it into our Data Vault layer. And for this one, I'm just going to uncheck the pushdown processing. So when I save this, I will now have two projects, one that's going to use pushdown processing and one that's not going to use pushdown processing. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and build all the artifacts and deploy them. I'm not going to show you that because that's, again, covered in a separate video around continuous integration, deployment of Azure Data Factory and Databricks. So let me go ahead and show you what the result of this is. So I've built and deployed both the Azure Data Factory code and the Databricks code. So again, we cover that in different videos, but for now, let me have a look, show you what we've done. So the pushdown processing, I'll look at the copy activity first, and I'll just look at the customer one. I'll look at it in both the scenarios. So this is the Azure Data Factory pipeline that gets generated from metadata. So the first part here is just getting high watermark parameters. Again, these parameters are configured in BimlFlex. And the Data Factory pipeline is split up in these sort of sections. And the reason for that is that if we are running the pipeline and there is no new data to get, it won't run the copy activity. So again, it's all about resource management. If we do have a higher parameter than the last one, we will run the copy activity, and the copy activity will take the data from the database and put it into the landing area. Then from there, because this is pushdown processing, the only thing we're doing is we're logging to our Biml catalog database to say, hey, I've got data to process. Okay, so that's the only thing that happens at this level here with pushdown processing. And this is where the main difference will come when we look at the non-pushdown processing in the CDC. What we then do is at a batch level, we will run the batches in the context of it is again captured in a sequence, and these solve orders, or these sort of different batch levels here, is based on a topological sort, which says, what data do I need to extract first and load, and then what is dependent on that, extract that second, and then obviously extract it third. So once we've extracted all our data and landed it into our landing environment, we will call a Databricks job, and I'll show you that job in a second. And this is using the Data Factory job activity to, again, just call a job and push down all the processing to Databricks. Okay, the rest is all just error handling and making sure that we log the execution correctly. Let's look at the non-pushdown processing. Again, we'll just look at the customer here. And the first part of it, although this is change data capture, which will look a little bit differently, but the principles is the same. It's going to go get the high watermark for the change data capture. And again, if there is new data or there is data to be changed, it runs the main activity. And the main activity is slightly different, but that's only to sort of look at whether we are doing an incremental load or we're doing a full load. It copies the data and lands it, same as the previous process. And here is where it's different. So instead of now just logging that there's data to process, we will use the Databricks activity node to actually call the source to staging, and then also calls the data vault. If you don't have data vault, obviously this will not be there. And then it basically logs the parameter, and then it does a whole bunch of file cleanups. Again, these are all configurations within BimlFlex, whether you want to keep the files, get rid of the files, or if you have an error, do you want to keep the error files? So again, all of this is configured in BimlFlex. So let's have a look now at what happens in the Databricks side of things for the pushdown processing. So for pushdown processing, again, because we are not, and this is we're doing some additional logging here, which again you can switch off in BimlFlex. So the first thing it does, it calls the job. Let me show you the job first. So this is the job that gets called, and within this job, again, you can see it's broken down into the same number of steps that was in the batch. And this one would, and if we drill down into this job here, you'll see that it will actually call individual notebooks. Okay, oops, let's look at the tasks there. It's calling individual notebooks. So again, we're using the functionality within Databricks to call a job and then call a sub job that calls the notebooks. The notebook itself, again, it's going to look, if you're technical, you love this. If you're not technical, don't worry. This is all generated for BimlFlex. So don't worry about it. It's just a lot of stuff there that needs to happen because we are now doing all the orchestration and control flow in the Python scripts. Effectively, it goes from the top down there. And in a nutshell, what it does is should I process or should I not process? And what do I need to process? Again, because this is all coming from metadata. And then it actually goes in and saying, okay, well, hold on. Do I have any pending processes? Remember in the Data Factory, we inserted a record in the pending processes saying, hey, you've got stuff to process. So it first looks at, do I have anything to process? If it has something to process, it gets all of the stuff from metadata. It looks like quite a lot of code, but it's all templated code. And it then effectively calls the notebook and saying, go and do the source to staging. And if you've enabled it, go and do the data vault. And then again, it does in error handling, and does the logging to the Biml catalog that I'm completed and what happened there. So again, because we are using pushdown processing, all that control flow logic and runtime logic is pushed down to Databricks. So yes, this is just a notebook, a Python notebook that controls everything. And then if you're looking at the actual, and we have SQL scripting enabled here, but the actual notebook that does the actual running of the code is this one here, which effectively just, again, it looks like a lot of code, but this is just doing the source to staging and persistent staging, which is basically your bronze layer, and it switches all of that on. There's another stored procedure there, or another notebook that will do the data vault load, which again, depending on if you've got that switched on, but all of this code is all generated. As you can see, it's very well formatted, all generated from BimlFlex, all generated from metadata. Not a single line of code here is written manually. So it's all automated. Everything is, the one piece of code will look the same, so it will reduce your maintenance quite a lot. Now let's look at the flip side of it. I'll jump back out here into the change data capture one. Again, this looks slightly different because now you only have a notebook, because remember, all of the control flow logic is now happening in Databricks, in Data Factory. You don't need that additional task here. So Data Factory just calls the store procedure. So you go down here, and this code is going to look exactly the same as the code of the non-pushdown processing code, right? Or the non-pushdown processing code and pushdown processing code looks exactly the same from a notebook point of view. The only difference is the control flow, or the runtime, is either pushed down to Databricks or it is kept in Data Factory. Now, the benefit of the pushdown processing is purely cost and performance. Running it in the pushdown processing mode in Databricks through the jobs here, in some cases, it's up to 50 to 75% faster and cheaper to use pushdown processing. Okay, so to recap, enabling or disabling pushdown processing in Databricks is really as simple as enabling or disabling this setting here. And then you control whether all the processing is pushed down to Databricks using your jobs and your workflows, or whether it's done, all the control logic is done inside of Azure Data Factory and using that Databricks activity node. Thank you for watching.